You have arrived to the Plunge into Prosperity podcast, where sacred wisdom meets regenerative wealth. I'm your host, Brandi of Sacral Capital. Now let's plunge in. Welcome back to Plunge into Prosperity, episode 22. The podcast where we don't just talk about wealth, we talk about what it actually costs to build it and what it means to steward it with intention. I'm your host, Brandi Kolaski, founder and GP also of Sacral Capital, Sacral Fund, and Sacral Sisters. And today's guest is sending a very clear signal. Kristin Issac spent 20 years inside of the most powerful media and tech companies on the planet. LinkedIn, ESPN, Disney, Udemy. She didn't just work there, she built. She scaled LinkedIn's EMEA customer success operations from 35 million to 75 million in ARR. She took ESPN Digital's EMEA business from 0 to 15 million in revenue. She knows what it means to move a number. And then she chose to plunge. In January 2025, Kristin co-founded Strudel AI, a Madison-based startup building the AI platform that finally closes the gap between customer support and engineering in B2B SaaS. We're talking about resolving complex technical issues 65% faster with a 50 times return on investment. They've already closed a pre-seed round, won a major pitch competition, and they are just getting started. This is a conversation about what it looks like when 20 years of corporate scale experience comes into rocket fuel for your own vision, about the decision to leave the institution and bet on yourself, and about what prosperity really means when you're the one writing the playbook. Kristin, welcome to the Plunge into Prosperity podcast. I'm so happy you're here and honored.
Thank you so much, Brandi. It's great to be here. So happy.
Yes, you're so welcome. I always start off the pod this way, and that is tell the listeners why they should continue listening to this particular episode.
Well, because obviously it's hosted by you, Brandi, and we're going to have an amazing conversation about prosperity, about companies, about growth, about meditation, about a whole bunch of things that actually may not seem to go together, and yet they do.
That's so awesome. And when did you take this plunge or any other plunges in your life? And what was the pivotal gut decisions that you recognized inside of you that always told you, okay, this is what I want my version of prosperity to look like? Because as I've started noticing that our vision of prosperity changes over time, right? And that's okay. And that's beautiful. That means there's growth happening. So give us one from the past and your future, your current one.
Yeah, it's a great question. For me, I think my vision of prosperity in some ways has changed and evolved over time, and in other ways it hasn't. I've always been very led by my values and by my core truths of who I am and what I'm willing to do and sacrifice and what I'm not. And so, in some ways, I feel like I have the same vision of prosperity that I've always had, which is to lead with my values and be true to myself and build really strong relationships, whether that's investors or customers or my team or my co-founders. And so a lot of the way that I view prosperity, something that's been very consistent over my life. And I think a lot of that from my young age, some of the grit and the hard work and all of that I went through at a very young age has played out in my career as well. And I think you see that theme throughout too. And then, of course, as you said, you do go through life stages, and with each life stage, there are different things that you have to consider and different trade offs. And yet, I would say at the core is, those values and who you really want to be and staying true to that through everything.
That is beautiful. And what happened in your what created the grit? What was those moments at a young age?
Yeah, Brandi. So I learned grit at a very young age. My parents got divorced when I was 8 because at the time my dad was an alcoholic. He's been a recovering alcoholic for 20 years now. So he's an amazing grandparent to my kids. But when I was a kid, he was really struggling. And so my parents got divorced. My mom was a single mom of 3 girls and a nurse. And she
Mm-hmm.
really struggled to make ends meet. She struggled to, pay for the mortgage, and when the car would break down, she'd have to ask her dad for help and things like that. And so my role as the oldest of 3 girls was to help, take my kids to take my sisters, my younger sisters at 8
Yes.
to school. Like I remember bringing my youngest sister to kindergarten for the first day of school, and she cried when I dropped her off. And that was my role, as an 8-year-old. And then my responsibilities kind of grew. And because my mom didn't have a lot of money, she would say, Kristin, if you want to play softball, you have to babysit around the neighborhood, earn the money, and then you need to find your own rides there too, because I'm working, you know, late shifts, nursing, I'm working 3 different jobs, I'm ends meet, and you need to just figure things out. And I think that even though that was hard as a kid, I didn't know any better. And it taught me so many life skills that I'm
Yeah.
grateful for to these days.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for that experience. I became a babysitter, at age 8, and then up until I could get my first full-time job around 15, then I started
Mhm.
being a lifeguard and a swim teacher, and then
Mhm.
eventually did some hostessing and waitressing, and
Yeah. Did you
throughout
end up playing softball?
I did, yeah, of course, yeah.
Yes.
Well, yeah,
Yes.
I learned at a young age
Yes.
how to set these goals and go achieve them. Yeah,
Amazing.
absolutely, I did. I still remember it to this day. It was a $60 fee, and it felt like a mountain at that age. I was like, "How am I gonna earn $60?" I feel like I was probably earning a dollar or $5 an hour or something. It was something very, very small, and so it was a lot of hard work, but I loved taking care of kids around the neighborhood too, and I was
Yeah.
so it was win-win. And slowly those things got bigger and bigger, right? When I was in high school, I wanted to go on a European tour to Europe, which was like $3,500 or something, and same thing, I'm like, okay, I got to just save up, and I
Yeah.
went, and it was awesome. And eventually that turned
That's
into saving for
beautiful.
college and saving for a study abroad in Spain, and then I lived in France
Mhm.
for a while after college. I eventually moved BBC moved me out to London to live in London for 7 years, and it's been a
Mhm.
wonderful life adventure. I can't
Yes.
complain.
And we really wouldn't be who we are if we didn't have those. Because my mother left my biological father when I was 2, and my brother was an infant because he also was not fit, alcoholic, and all these other things, and she put us in a single wide trailer, and I don't remember being babysat, but somebody babysat us, and she was not even 21 yet.
Oh, wow.
She was 20, 19, 20,
Oh,
and she worked at a restaurant, and did extra side jobs as well. And my grandmother was from Spain, but she just didn't have she wasn't cut out to babysit. And so there was some bumps and scrapes along the way there, and random car accidents, fender benders, because she just didn't know how to drive. She was European. Uh, and
no,
so I'd end up on the floorboard in the front seat. I was 2, and you know,
no, it
sitting
was
no no
crazy.
no no, regular car seat. It was just down into the
No,
floor.
you're right, like, we didn't have the same attitude about car seats back then, right? I remember sitting in the back of a station wagon that had seats facing back, right, towards the other cars, and we loved to sit back there and look at all the cars, but imagine how safe that was if you got rear-ended, right? I mean, that
Yeah, yeah, and she would
you
just
don't
put
see
me in the
cars
front
like this
seat.
anymore.
The
Yeah.
seatbelt didn't do anything, I just slid right out of it. So, yeah, and so my mother, taught me that grit, and then she ended up meeting a man who became my father when I was 4, and they got married, and they were the first 2 to become successful in the family, but we weren't successful right away. We came from nothing, like, lived in a double wide trailer. Then by the time I was 14, my father stayed in the same profession, ended up buying his first business that was of his profession that he mastered. And so then it became kind of like a family business as well. And so we went from having nothing to my father being able to get all the toys, the boats and the jet skis and the, RVs, and I was in dance, ballet, tap, jazz. My mother went into debt behind my dad's back, didn't tell him, that all these things cost money, and I just kept excelling. I was 3 years ahead of my age range in dance, and so competing. And you think about that, that's 6 different types of shoes, 6 different competing outfits, 2 different outfits for the regular training. That's one of the most expensive athletic opportunities that a child can go through. And so my mother didn't get done paying off that debt till my mid-20s. And so I am so thankful for her because that also taught me showing up on time, being a star, being a team leader. I would After school, I would ride my bike. I was only 8 years old as well, from far away after school to dance school or another regular school. So I was learning how to navigate the roads by myself, and, you know, make sure I did my homework in between the dance classes, no one telling me. And so that definitely set the tone for sure. And we
Totally.
weren't allowed to, when we did come home from school, we weren't allowed to do our homework or do anything else unless we Windex and vacuumed every day.
I love that, that's great. Yeah, I
So
learned how to ride the local bus system. I grew up
same.
in the Twin Cities, and I was in the Twin Cities around 11, 12 years old, and I just took the bus everywhere. I learned how to get anywhere. I would take it downtown and go to the museums. Even when I was watching my sisters, I wouldn't tell my mom until much later. I was like, "Oh, by the way, we took the buses downtown and we, went to the art museum and this
Yeah.
and had lots of fun." But she didn't know till years later that we had done that, and it was great.
And
A
it's
great
so beautiful because then you could do that. Now it's just a little there's some things. There are some really great neighborhoods still in this world and some really great culture still in this world. There's just a little more sadness and fear in people that and healing that needs to be done.
There's a
I
lot
don't
more
think
fear.
yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
there's
think that
a lot
we're
more.
paying attention to
Mhm.
the humanity's mental health as much as we should. But
I agree.
thank you for sharing that vulnerable story. That means a lot because it just shows like where we all come from similar walks of life, yet sometimes very different, but still all pain in the body. It doesn't know the difference. It's all the same pain, right? So you spent 20 years building inside some of the most powerful institutions, like I shared with before, LinkedIn, ESPN, Disney. At some point, the woman who was scaling other people's visions, you, decided to build your own. What was the actual moment, that signal that told you it was time to take your own plunge?
A great question. There were so many moments that I wanted to do it earlier, so many. I can't even tell you. I mean, when I was building for the BBC based out of Chicago, I was the fourth person hired. We were working out of a rented Regis office space, and we were going and I was doing everything. I was planning events, I was doing marketing, I was doing sales, I was trafficking ads on the weekend because we outsourced it to an ad trafficking company and they were closed on
Hmm.
the weekends. So if a customer had a problem, that was up to me to go fix it. And I really felt like a business owner, and a startup founder in a lot of ways, and I just kept thinking to myself, "Gosh, too bad this company's owned by the UK government," you know? It's like basically the PBS of the US, It's like it's not
Yeah,
even for profit. I mean, much less did I get, stock or any kind of huge outcome from that, and I remember thinking, someday I'm learning all these skills now, but
it's an
someday I
expensive
wanna
MBA.
take it's a very expensive MBA, and I wanna do it for myself someday, and I knew I'll say even if I went back to college, I studied all sorts of different things. I always had a brain that just wanted to learn how things work. I had kind of a math and engineering brain. I wanted to know how things work and I wanted to learn about everything. So I studied, computer science. I took high level, math classes, and I also did international relations and political science, and I took Spanish and French and Chinese. It was like I was just kind of insatiable and I wanted to learn all these things, and I feel like that opened up so many different doors for me later in life and actually throughout my whole life, right? So I can
Mhm,
tie that back. I did a bunch of internships when I was in college, and one of them was at a HR consultancy. And to this day, I still remember doing one of those personality tests where they were like, "Oh,
mhm.
we offer this for our customers and their teams, but since you're interning here, if you want to just do it for fun, go ahead." And I did this personality test, and the woman who I reported to at the time, I was just like 19 or something. She was like, "Oh my God, you turned up as a CEO. You're supposed to be a CEO." And I'm like 19, right? I'm like, this is my first internship in college. And I was like, well, that's great, but I don't think I'm going to be a CEO tomorrow. So I'll just keep that in the back of my mind, for when that makes sense.
That's
And
wild.
every once in a while, I think back on it and I'm like, the world has a way of knowing, what your path is, and sometimes you look back and the dots are so clear
Yes,
to where
yes,
you end up, right? And it's so
yes.
clear what the path you should be on and sort of how
Mhm.
you got there as well. And I think about that a lot because there are many days where I just feel so grateful to be in this position that I'm in now, to be able to start a company and to feel like I was made to do this. And it feels so good. And I wanted to do it for so long. There's so many startups I did for bigger companies where I didn't have the ownership, where I didn't have sometimes the ultimate decision making. I didn't have the ability to, I often could pick my team, but I couldn't pick the whole team, right? I didn't
Yeah.
often get to think about product and engineering and sales and marketing. And I just love that. I love the
Being
broad.
able to, yeah, we're run through multiple departments. I also wanted to be a brain surgeon, heart surgeon, a psychologist, marine biologist, astronomer, and dance and CIA and dance choreographer.
I love it.
And from UF to UCF and so in high school, I applied to be in an academy where we took business and finance courses from University of Florida in high school. So I was, and then my father was had become an entrepreneur by then, and so I was all into that. And then in high school and into college, I didn't need these credits. I just wanted them, but I did marine biology studies. So during the summer, didn't need to, but I loved doing that during the summer. Then my dance career, of course. And then CIA, there was just something about being like not the secret spy part, but just like uncovering information that people couldn't figure out with data, right? And
Yeah.
so there's that. And then astronomy, I've just always been, I don't know what it is, flying. I'm getting my pilot's license already. Love flying, but also just the stars and just like how vast. And I was just always intrigued. And and when I was in Orlando studying at university there, this is how old that dating myself I am, not old, dating my age. They would send us home with VHSs
Yeah. Oh,
about the
yeah.
astronomy,
Yeah. Oh,
studying
I
the
remember
stars.
I was the one in the family where when the VHS player broke, I was the one who fixed it. Even again, like even from like elementary school, my mom would be like, "Ma, it's broken, Kristin. Can you go fix it?" And I'm like, "Sure, I'll take it apart and put it back together." That'll be, like my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, my brother can take apart anything with his eyes closed and put it back together. Yeah.
So
Yeah, yes.
how
So
cool.
I'm right there with you. And I do think, and to this day with my career, I've worked in every industry except robotics and live animals.
Amazing.
So you name it, I've worked in it, and similar to you in all the capacities from building a brand from the ground up, from rebranding it, from say a company had a juice beverage that they created, but they needed new packaging bottles. I went and found out how to source the certain types of caps and and then I got products into the Whole Foods, and then or it was swimwear and resort wear, or marketing and sales and e-commerce, or it was sports and brand partnerships, and and from NBA to NFL to Formula One electric racing.
Isn't
You
it
name it.
amazing that you can do all these different things and yet you can find common threads through all of them, right?
Well, it's the same foundation. Process, protocol, research, apply, rinse and repeat, A and B testing. Yep.
I love it. I love that. I love that. I mean, right now we're working with at Strudel, we have customers in manufacturing tech, health tech, fintech, and insure tech.
Yes,
And people are
InsurTech's huge.
so
Yeah.
surprised that there are so many common threads between a manufacturing tech company and a fintech company. But there are.
Yeah.
There are so many common threads. There are so many ways that our solution is helping both of them in a very parallel way, even though, one is an industrial manufacturer and the other has a global wealth management platform.
Mm-hmm.
And I
So
love that. I mean, it's so
and you get to talk to all of them and all these unique minds. I just love that too. I just love humans
love
and
them.
inventing with them.
Yeah.
So let's jump into tell us what Strudel AI is. And, you've already closed a pre-seed round and won a major pitch competition. But, so tell us what it is, and then I'll go into the next part of that. Yeah.
Yeah, so Strudel is the investigation layer for technical support. So you can think about us as that single source of truth between customers and the engineering team. And that data and that information flows both ways because there are multiple, usually 6+ different systems that those teams are working in to give customers the best experience, to reduce churn, to improve, revenue. And so Strudel's providing all that information to those teams that sit between engineering and the customer in the
Okay.
right moment, translated for that moment in time. So yeah, so you mentioned some of the KPIs. So we're able to give the root cause in the engineering ticket with 95% accuracy
I'm
in
gonna
the
have
first
things.
pass. That's really exciting. We can reduce the time to resolve those issues by 65%,
Okay.
and we're reducing engineering time by 20%. Helping, Strudel is named after an apple strudel because we are making lives sweeter. We named ourselves after a pastry because we are making lives sweeter.
Yes, I
The
love that.
customers' lives, the customer success lives, technical support lives, engineering lives,
Yes.
everybody's lives sweeter by making these issues last, less time, be easier to
Mm-hmm.
resolve, and kind of automating all the painful parts away so that,
Yep.
humans, we're very much a human in the loop solution, but so that
Mm-hmm.
humans can focus on what they do best, the most
Mm-hmm.
important part of that relationship, the most important part of the investigation, if there's a new or a novel issue, that's where we want our humans focused.
Mhm.
How do we make sure that they can fix this and it doesn't happen again?
I
So
love.
that's Strudel.
Yep,
Yeah.
we're definitely probably gonna have to apply Strudel to our future portcos, of course.
Oh,
So
yes, please. Yes. Fast
that's
growing Series A, Series B companies is usually where we start to fit in, where they can't hire people fast enough because they're growing so fast and customers are coming in so fast that they either can't or don't want to hire so many people to solve all those issues. We can come in and make them much more efficient in these
okay.
layers between the customer and engineering.
Yep, I definitely wanna see what it looks like under the hood and
Yes.
get some type of like a visual beta, something of this nature.
We would love that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
But
you said under the hood. So I should mention, we have my co-founder, Shai, is a super builder. He's so smart. He's got his PhD in computer science, and he's built us all these proprietary models, which allow us to process this data at anywhere between 1/100th of the cost and 1/1000th of the cost of an LLM, for example,
mhm.
more accurately, not just more cost effectively, but more accurately as well.
Mhm.
LLMs are really built to, when you give it the same question 3 times, they're built to give you creative answers. They'll give you a different answer 3 times.
Yes.
You have a
The
technical
same
support.
answer.
Yeah, you want the same answer 3 times in a row or 100 times in a row, right? You want the same answer every time. And so we're using these smaller models that are more efficient and more cost effective that are gonna be able to give that accurate answer every time.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Good. And so we know the data. The women founders, though, receive a fraction of venture capital. You know this data, right?
do.
And the women of certain age are given even less grace in the room. What
Mhm.
has your fundraising experience actually looked like, and what do you wish more people said out loud about what it takes to get capital as a woman building in tech?
Well, these are great questions. And I honestly, I always talk to my other founders about we can control what we can control. And that's what we should focus on, right? We're focused on what we can control, and all the things we can't control, we're not going to be focused on. I'm very
Mm-hmm.
aware of the numbers and, a certain amount of, yeah, just sort of like cultural and historical context when it comes to fundraising, where women and minorities tend to be a little bit it tends to be a little bit harder for us. I will say that, luckily for me in my career, I have had amazing men, mostly men who've mentored me in my career, who've
Mm-hmm.
achieved the things that I've achieved. And I would not be here if it wasn't for them. I mean, if it wasn't
Same.
for my early investors who are actually all men. I know you've gotten a lot of female investors, which I want to connect with you on that and try to figure out how to
Yeah.
that market as well. But for me, I think all of my investors, I don't have any female investors actually, unfortunately, on the cap table. They're all men. So I wouldn't be here without them, right? And I'm grateful for the
Understood.
champions and for everything that they've done to help support me in the business to build what we've built
Right.
so far.
Of
Yeah.
course. Yeah, no, the first couple men or first couple investors of Sacral Fund are men. Yet when it came that those are the small checks. When it came to going institutional and having these conversations, it becomes a lot different. And so that's why I stopped raising from institution again and just started raising from women to
Mhm.
build through an SPV a larger amount because they would just ask me, "How did you think of all this? You thought of all this? You strategized this?" Like, and I'm like, "Yes. You've already done due diligence on 5 of the 20 companies that you're identifying and yes, cuz most funds that are ran by men, they don't have to identify who they're actually investing in. They just have to say, "Oh, I'm investing in this industry. Give me $200 million."
Yeah. I
And
mean,
it
the thing
and
is,
it works. No, it doesn't it won't work for women, sadly, at this stage.
anytime you have an investment process, I feel like it's always really hard to raise money. And one thing that can be really challenging is when people make assumptions, whether there's assumptions about you, assumptions about the business, and again, outside your control, but when they make assumptions and don't ask you the questions to confirm if their assumptions are correct or not, right?
Mhm.
That can be really, really hard, and I can think of very
Mm.
specific examples of talking to investors where they clearly made assumptions and didn't seem willing or weren't interested in asking the right questions to check if that assumption was correct or not.
Mhm.
That
Yep,
can be a very frustrating part of
yep.
raising.
That comes back to being, fiduciarily responsible, right? So, you know these men are stewarding capital, but they aren't leaning into those questions that they should be asking, not for themselves, but for their LPs, right?
Yes.
So that's also important. But then whenever I go back a little bit deeper, differently here, it's when it's not that they're asking it is that, but then it's what I've been noticing is they're just comfortable. No one likes change. Most humans don't like change. They're comfortable doing deals with other men,
Yeah,
right?
or
It's just
comfortable, you could say comfortable with their process, comfortable with what's worked in
yeah,
the past, and that
how they
pattern
communicate.
matching, right? And they're matching patterns all the time, so it's like, "Oh, this is the
Hmm.
pattern that's always worked." You know
Yes.
what's crazy to me, though, is, when I was at LinkedIn, we spent a lot of time on unconscious bias against women, and I think the company did a really good job trying to combat unconscious bias against women. We learned about, there was a woman at Stanford named Fern Mandelbaum. She's amazing. She has all this research about how companies can help support women to both grow in their roles and actually get more senior roles, how you can hire more equitably, and
Hmm.
we learned, not only do companies that do this well perform better, right? They're more profitable. They have much better, if they're on the stock market, their stock has a higher price. Boards that have at least a third. We learned from Fern, you want to have at least a third of your board members, at least a third of your senior management that are women, because you start to see the benefits of diversity at that point.
Hmm.
Instead of a third, it can't be like just a token woman.
Yes. No.
But there's so many reasons to go out and do this well, and yet there's still so many things that happen all the time, like in hiring, for example. One uh, one thing that impacts women and not men in a hiring process is there's a certain set of requirements that a senior woman needs to hit to get the job. And
Hmm.
for a man, it's like, okay, he hit the requirements, we're done. Let's just see if he's a good fit. And for a woman, it's like, oh, she hit all these requirements. But what about these requirements? And then she hits those and it's like, but what about these requirements? And there's research to support this, that when women hit the same requirements that were set out as the job description that you started with, that they then often find themselves in a position where the requirements start going up, right? And so this is one way that unconscious bias against women creeps into the hiring process.
Hmm.
And it creeps in across we looked at it when I was at LinkedIn, it creeps off in across the hiring process, about the promotion process, on every single stage, and without the awareness about it, it's just something that's not gonna be fixed, right? Unless a lot of people
Hmm.
make an effort. And by the way, you could have unconscious bias against women in women too, it can be women or men, and
Yeah. Yeah. For
one of the
sure.
things that I learned, when I was at LinkedIn is if a woman says or does something and I'm like, "Oh, I don't know about that." One thing I now always do is I'm like, "Okay, if she were a white man, would I think the same thing?" And then I know, okay, if the answer is yes, then I'm like, "Okay, that's that's a valid concern that I can raise." And if the answer is no, like if it was a white man that did that, that wouldn't bother me. Then I know, okay, that's my unconscious bias against women, and now I gotta check
Yeah.
myself and say,
Yes.
okay,
That's
if
beautiful.
that was a dude that did that, I wouldn't care, then I need to just let that go and take the exact same attitude.
Yes, yes, exactly. There's one little final caveat on this one. There's also another research that just came out. Wealth advisors and financial advisors, they started looking at comparing data. They were not they were giving favorable information and insight and strategy to men and just giving the basics to women because their answer was they automatically just thought that they just wouldn't understand, so they just kept it basic.
That's terrible. You hear the same thing about feedback, right? Women don't get the same direct feedback as men do in the workplace. And that's one thing I try to always ask. So when I meet with investors, I'm like, I am not offended by feedback. Feedback
Me
is,
either. I love it.
I love it.
I think that comes from our athlete grit.
Yes, 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 perhaps. And I'm
It's a
like,
little.
I'm very transparent. I want you to be
Me too.
transparent. I want to hear it straight. And then I know that we can work through anything together. And sometimes working through is maybe we don't work together, but if I can learn as much as possible, it's a much better outcome than
Hmm.
not understanding the full.
Yeah. Where are you in the stage of Strudel cap raise?
So to your point, we did a friends and family in the fall, and
Hmm.
then we got a 200K a government match that
Great.
got delayed until the spring. And so because that got delayed, we had to keep back some of the funds from the fall.
Hmm.
And in that time, we were growing and we were taking on design partners, and I realized we're gonna have to raise more money. So
Yeah.
I actually increased the amount that we wanna raise and then got more money from the government.
Okay.
So
Great.
and so now we're about 800K committed and $1 million raise. And so I just need 200K more to close out that round and hit the milestones for my next round, which will be a seed. And
Yes. Let's
milestones,
go, ladies.
yeah, let's go. Milestone for the next round
I'll
is
I'll look I'll look at our data room for you all first.
thank you. Yeah, yeah. Well, sure.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to see. We've got two paying customers. We've got, a goal of hitting 10 design partners with this raise. And we will have learned, like I said, we're in insurtech, health tech, fintech. I'm missing one. Well, anyway, whatever it
Manufacturing.
is, we're gonna learn a lot from these first 10 customers, and then we're gonna
Yeah.
use that to continue to scale Strudel and
Perfect.
do
Perfect.
big things. Yeah.
Yes. And so someone who has built, started building Strudel and other businesses, and you have moved other people's capital and revenue and so forth and influenced where resources flow, whether that's budget, talent, or actual investments. Have you invested in other founders? And if so, what does a woman led business have to signal to you to earn your capital or your time commitment to them? Like what are
I
as
love this question.
since you are that high level, what are you looking for?
I love
Yeah.
this question because I think there's such a gap in female-led businesses being underfunded that there's a huge financial upside in choosing female-led businesses and investing in them and seeing that upside. And like I said before, the numbers support it as well, right? That female-led and diverse businesses outperform businesses that are
70,
not
yeah.
diverse. Yeah,
We're
but
bringing 78 cents. If you give a woman a dollar, she'll bring you back a dollar 78. If you give a man a dollar, he'll give you 131.
exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
it's insane. So I actually, once I exit from Strudel and we make, billions of dollars together, I want to help with female-led businesses and investment. I feel like there's such a huge opportunity to
Maybe
continue.
launch your own mini fund?
Yes,
A
invest in
strudel
female-led
fund.
business. Strudel Fund for female-led
I
businesses.
love that. I can already see
100%.
it. It's already
Yes.
done. I already see
Yes.
it. That's so
And what
awesome.
And what I really look for is, especially this like very, very early stage is some of the stuff we've already talked about, right? Does this person have the grit and the work ethic to stick this out and, is in it to make sure it works no matter what? Because in my view, if you've got the right skills and experience and the right grit, it's just
Mhm.
a matter of optimizing, right? It's a
Yeah.
matter of figuring out what are the things that work, what are the things
Yeah.
that don't work, and then
Mhm.
doubling down every time you find something that works,
Mhm.
you double down on what works, and then you double down on what works. And from a product perspective, you try to 10x it, 10x it, 10x it.
Yep.
And it's a beautiful thing. And I really have faith that when you invest in, I mean, especially these days where women don't get the capital as equally as the men, it's right for investment. It's right
Mhm.
for huge outcomes, and
Yeah.
I live in Madison, Wisconsin, and we have Judy Faulkner here who founded Epic, one of the world's largest female-led businesses. And then there's another woman who runs ABC Supply, I believe it's called, is
Yes.
a huge
Yeah.
female-led business
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Wisconsin as
yeah.
well. So
I read
even
about
though
her recently. Mhm.
yeah, even though I think in general maybe Wisconsin's not known for, the startup ecosystem or investing in that a large amount, we do have a couple of women who have built businesses here that
Have
really
you not reached out to them?
I actually haven't, and I probably should, right?
So this is where I'm like a creative capital raiser in a sense too. And so it's you want to create an event or something where it invites them to have a platform and then you build that relationship if you can't be introduced directly, right? That's how I got a lot of the women on board. I wasn't even initially wanting to like create the Sacral Sisters SPV. I had me and another girl just wanted to do a catamaran event in St. Augustine where we were just teaching women about financial literacy and diversification and mind, body, spirit. And that's another thing I look for in the women founders I'm investing in is also there is a challenge, how well do you navigate that from an integrity perspective as well as, regulating the emotional perspective as well. So that goes into that play. But teaching these women because a lot of them are real estate investors or house flippers, so they wanted to know how to diversify. And it just turned into this big, beautiful plunging of prosperity and rolling of sacral sisters. And it was all based off of just a platform of women getting together to support each other. And that was it.
That's
Yeah, yeah.
amazing.
And that's how it happened. So if you
Yeah.
create something like that, I don't see how you could get the attention of those women too.
You know,
They might need your services
Yeah.
their businesses.
Yeah. I wonder if I could do something with, female CEOs and female investors kind of in the area in the Midwest or something like that.
Yeah, I would love to co-collaborate with you on it for sure.
All right.
That'd be
Let's do
fun.
that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so you've mentioned that your mom was single mother of 3, and if you wanted something like ski trip, you had to earn it yourself, or not just your ski trip, but your softball and,
Skiing
I
too. Yep. I bought my own
yeah,
skis. Yeah. I bought my used skis at the Play It Again Sports with the money I earned babysitting. Yeah. At 30,
yeah. What
probably.
did that version of you learn specifically about money? I know that you had told me the story of, like, you being able to achieve, like, the small goals, right? But as far as, like, what money, because for when I share with the, other pods, we fear number one fear all humans have the same of, no matter if you're a billionaire or you're, in poverty, everyone has fear of money, of keeping it, making it, using it, holding it, what did you learn about money then and the energy of it?
Well, it's a good question because my grandfather had his own business. He had a general contracting business, and my grandma and my grandpa, they fought in World War II. And
Hmm.
my grandma was a secretary to a general in Europe
Wow.
at the time, and so she was based in Europe, and then after the war ended, she traveled all over using the jets from the military. That she
Yeah.
would say, "Oh, are you going up to, Sweden? I wanna go with you," or whatever. Seems maybe a bad example, but yeah,
No,
anyway,
it's not.
traveled
No,
all over. Yeah,
that's just
yeah, I don't
hitching
really
a ride. I mean,
yeah.
you can still kind of do that now on cargo ships. I don't know if you know this, but you can hitch rides with cargo ships.
No way, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my grandparents were very, very frugal. They lived through the Great Depression, and they were poor through the Great Depression, and then they went and fought in World War II, and then they used the GI Bill to get educated at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. My grandma too. She got a history major there and then ended up
Amazing.
having 5 kids, and, my grandpa, he, was a millionaire from his business, and he wouldn't take my grandma out to dinner. He wouldn't, he was that frugal that it was like, "No, that's a waste of money. We're not gonna eat at a restaurant." And so in order to let grandma go to dinner, we had to buy them gift cards, to restaurants. And it wasn't even, it was like chain restaurant. It wasn't even like that nice of restaurants, but we'd be like, "Here, here's a restaurant gift card for Christmas and for your birthday, grandma. And grandpa, go take grandma out to eat, let's make sure that we're enjoying life." Right?
Yeah.
So I feel like in some ways I learned that as a kid, that trade-off between, yes, it's important to save and be frugal and invest. And it's also important that you only live once and you need to
Mhm.
live the way that is true to yourself. And this is where those values kind of come in, right? So from my
Mhm.
perspective, even as a young kid, I did use my money to play softball. I bought downhill skis and I skied at the local ski hill, Buck Hill, with my friends. And I did the European choir tour. And I saved up for college too, because I knew I was going to have to pay
Mhm.
for college myself. And,
Mhm.
and I think I started to develop that relationship with money at a very young age in terms of what was worth
The
spending.
balance.
Yeah, the balance,
Okay.
what was worth saving for, and I, I guess I learned to take a little bit of risk with it as well, in the sense that I knew that, my grandparents might consider, going out to eat a risk, but I felt like, it's kind of sad that they have so much and yet my grandma can't even go out to a restaurant to go eat. And I knew at a young age I didn't want to live like that either. I wanted
Yeah.
to make sure
I
that
mean, that's supposed to be like a romantic, memorable time. You can't really explore the depths or the growth of a human if you're constantly having conversations in the same environment. Your grandfather didn't think about that neurological perspective, and that's one of the reasons why I really love living in this time. And thank you for sharing that, private story. But it's a the way that we're able to study and share information about the mind and the psyche and what's good for us and as humans to continue to develop and grow, and that is explore other cultures and other tastes and smells and environments and have different conversations in different places because it sparks different neurological, patterns in the brain. Like there's just you could go down a rabbit hole in those things, right? And
totally.
that's that. And then also just from romance. Yeah. I'm
Well,
sending
luckily
your
for my
grandma
grandma,
some love.
yeah, I mean, luckily for her, she did travel a ton in Europe after
Yes,
World War
exactly.
II. And then she did keep up traveling. My grandpa didn't love to travel, but he would travel with her a fair bit
Oh, that's nice.
together. And then it's so funny. She always said, when you die, I'm going to travel the world. I'm going to do so many things. And then, of course, he lived to like 93 and she lived to like 96. And she's like, I give up. She's a, very direct German woman. So she would be like,
Yeah, I'm German as well. German, Polish. Yep, 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 yep.
yeah. But I feel like I've learned a lot from my travels too. I was lucky enough to
Yes.
study abroad in Spain and learn Spanish
I
really.
lived in London for a little bit too, by the way,
10 years in London. I
Chelsea.
married an Australian guy, so I go to Australia all the time and visit his
Yeah,
family, and that's lots of fun. I lived in France. I worked there after college. It was actually one of the hardest experiences I ever had because I
I'm
and I
sure.
grit through that because I had to show up. I had nowhere to live. I had no job. I had a visa to
Yep.
work there, but I knew I needed a job to pay for my expenses, my living
Mhm.
expenses, and it was really hard in Paris to find a place to live at that time that was somewhat affordable and then to get a job.
Yeah.
And I was lucky in the end I got it, but there was a lot of there was there were a lot of low moments where I wasn't sure I was gonna find a place to live, and I wasn't sure I ended up sharing a one-bedroom, by the way, apartment with a girl
Yeah.
from
Oh,
school.
that happens. I
Shared a
lived in a
one-bedroom.
truck. I had to live in a truck once for a few weeks because I owned my own business, and my parents said, "You made your bed, you got to sleep in it."
Yeah,
No one was
nice.
helping me in my mid
Crazy.
20s. No,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
no.
Sounds
Yeah.
like my mom would be like, "Tough love. This is tough love. I love
Yes,
you, but
yes,
yeah,
yes.
live in your truck." Yeah. But that's good for kids. I mean,
I wasn't
everybody.
even my truck, it was my boyfriend's truck at the time.
Yeah, oh my god. Yeah,
Oh,
but
yeah.
you learn a lot from those experiences, right? They
Oh
really
gosh,
do.
yes.
In the long run,
Yeah.
I think they really help
Oh,
you.
yeah, but that won't happen again, but yes.
No.
Thank you for that experience. Never again.
Yeah, never
But,
again.
go ahead and tell our listeners where they can find you if they wanna look into Strudel for their current business, or if there's any, women or men that are looking to invest in your type of AI B2B SaaS solutions.
You can find me at Kristin at Strudel.io, and that's Kristin. You can find me on LinkedIn, Kristin Nichols Isaac, and you can just private message me or send me an email. And I would love to chat. And even if you're not sure if your business would want to use Strudel or not, but you're happy to do a 30-minute conversation with me to learn more about your business and where you have needs, that would be super helpful. So, yeah, and I have a weekly newsletter that I do on LinkedIn as well about founding
Amazing.
a company. And yeah, just
Love that.
grateful to be here, Brandy, and be able to meet the
Thank
people that you
you.
know. And we're all one big community, aren't we?
We are, we are. Thank you for taking the plunge with us, Kristen. Also, to our listeners, thank you for watching. Always take the plunge and have a prosperous rest of your week. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you, Brandy.
Thank you, Kristen. Thanks for plunging into sacred wisdom and regenerative wealth with us. If your soul and your portfolio just got a glow up, hit subscribe on YouTube, Amazon, Spotify, and Apple. Share it with your crew. Tag us on social and join the movement at plungeintoprosperity.com. I'm Brandi Koloski. Catch you on the next plunge.